The shuttle descended slowly through violet skies, its silver hull reflecting the strange, shimmering light of twin moons. Captain gripped the edge of his seat, his heart beating faster with every rotation of the landing gears. He had seen alien worlds before, but nothing had prepared him for this place. The air itself seemed alive, vibrating softly, carrying scents he could not name, sweet and metallic at the same time, like flowers grown from crystal. He swallowed hard, realizing this mission would not be like any other he had undertaken. The landing pad stretched before him, made of translucent panels that glowed from within. Strange vehicles, smooth as living creatures, rested quietly as if waiting for him to arrive. The palace rose beyond the pad, a tower of curved crystal and light, taller than anything human hands could build, yet delicate, elegant, as though it had grown from the ground itself. Shadows moved inside the walls, shapes that hinted at movement, life, and intent. He stepped out of the shuttle. The gravity felt slightly lighter, giving him a floaty, unreal sensation. The air buzzed faintly with energy, tickling his skin. Every step he took on the glowing platform made him feel as if he were stepping into a dream. The soft hum of seemed to call to him, a sound he did not know he understood. Then she appeared. The noblewoman stepped from the palace doors, her figure slender but commanding. Her skin glimmered faintly, pale with a subtle luminescence, and her eyes were golden pools, reflecting the light of the twin moons. She moved with a grace had never seen in humans. Every gesture seemed to carry centuries of tradition and quiet authority. She stopped a few meters away and regarded him with a gaze that made his chest tighten. "You have traveled far," she said softly, but her voice held a strange resonance, almost vibrating in the air around him. "And yet, some journeys change more than the distance you cross." Her words hung in the air. His mind raced, trying to understand the full meaning, and for a moment he realized he was unprepared not for the journey itself, but for her presence. She was not simply a ruler. She was a force, a being whose very existence seemed to demand attention, and whose calm confidence made him feel fragile, exposed. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of strange flora. Towering flowers bent slightly toward him, their petals glowing softly. The palace behind her sparkled with refracted light, making her silhouette look almost unreal, ethereal. Took a deep breath. He had dealt with politicians, monarchs, and powerful leaders, but none of them had ever made him feel this way, as if the world had paused for her arrival. She walked closer, slowly, deliberately, and his boots made no sound on the glowing panels. "I am Lady," she said, "and you are far from home, Captain of Earth." I am honored to meet you, Lady," he managed, his voice steady despite the strange sensation in his chest. "I hope we can find understanding between our peoples." Her gaze softened for a moment, though it remained intense. "Understanding is not always found in words," she murmured. "Sometimes it is discovered in moments, in choices, in trust." Nodded, unsure if he fully grasped her meaning. He had been trained to negotiate treaties, to mediate conflicts, to read body language and human intent. But this presence was different. It demanded more than reason. It demanded connection. As the sun began to dip beneath the jagged crystal horizon, painting the sky in bands of violet and gold, felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. He had come for diplomacy, for duty, but he realized deep inside that his life, and perhaps his understanding of what it meant to be human, was about to change in ways he could not yet imagine. Lady inclined her head slightly, a silent acknowledgement, and then turned toward the palace. "Come," she said. "There is much you must see and much you must feel if you are to understand." Followed, each step echoing faintly on the glowing floor. Every sense was alive. The colors, the scents, the sounds, even the energy in the air. He realized he had never felt so small, so aware, and so utterly drawn into something that was not just a place, but a presence. The shuttle behind him was left behind, Earth left even further, as he stepped forward into a world that would change him forever. The palace was unlike anything he had ever seen. Inside, walls of living crystal reflected light in ever-shifting patterns, casting colors that did not exist on Earth. Soft hums echoed through the corridors, as though the building itself breathed. He followed Lady in silence, feeling the weight of her gaze on him, pulling him forward, guiding him, testing him without words. Every step made him more aware of his own humanity and the vast difference between them. They entered a garden unlike the one outside. Here, plants glowed faintly, their stems twisting like ribbons in the air. The petals seemed to pulse with life, and delicate streams of light flowed along the ground like liquid starlight. Inhaled deeply, sensing an energy that seemed to reach inside him, touching corners of his mind he had not known existed. The garden seemed alive, aware, as though it watched him just as he watched it. Lady moved toward a fountain made entirely of transparent crystal. Water poured from it without sound, sparkling with inner light. She turned to him, her golden eyes holding his attention so completely that felt as if nothing else existed. "Captain," she said softly, almost a whisper, "there are truths you cannot yet grasp. Some things are not learned through words, they must be felt." His heart beat faster. Her words, calm and deliberate, seemed to carry an almost magnetic power. He tried to respond, but his voice caught in his throat. The air around her seemed to hum with expectation, anticipation, and something else he could not name. He felt simultaneously drawn and unsteady, as if stepping closer might change everything about him. She took a small step forward. Her hand hovered near his, not touching but close enough that he could feel the faint energy radiating from her. "Touch me," she whispered. "Just for a moment, and you will see the world differently. You will forget every other path, every other choice, every other memory that is not this moment." Froze, her words were not a command, they were an invitation. They held a promise, a warning, and a truth he could not ignore. His mind raced, trying to weigh duty against desire, logic against instinct. He had trained for crises, for combat, for diplomacy, but nothing had prepared him for this, for the simple gravity of a single touch that could rewrite his understanding of life. He wanted to reach out, and yet he hesitated. What would he lose? Memories of his home, of his crew, of Earth itself. Could he risk forgetting the life he had always known for something he did not fully understand? Yet the pull was irresistible, a quiet force stronger than any law or logic he had ever known. Lady's gaze softened. She stepped closer, her presence surrounding him like a wave. The golden glow of her eyes reflected in the shimmering plants and felt a strange warmth in his chest. "You do not need to answer now," she said, her voice barely audible over the hum of the garden. "But know this, moments like this are rare. They will not wait for hesitation. They are here and then they are gone. You will have to decide if you are willing to step beyond yourself." Swallowed hard, he could feel the air around him vibrating with the energy of her words, the weight of the moment pressing on him. He realized that this was not about negotiation, not about duty, and not about strategy. It was about connection. Something far deeper, something that reached across species, across understanding, across time itself. The garden seemed to grow quieter, the lights dimming slightly as if sensing the tension in him. Felt a strange mix of fear and anticipation. He understood that his choice here would matter, not just for him, but for the fragile bridge forming between humanity and... For the first time since stepping on this planet, felt truly small, truly human, and yet deeply alive. And in that space, the whisper of Lady's words lingered, echoing in his mind. "Touch me, you will forget every other girl, every other life, every other path." He did not know what he would choose, but he knew one thing clearly: he would never be the same again. The halls were quiet now, but the tension in his chest had grown heavier than ever. He walked behind Lady, following her through corridors that curved like living streams, their surfaces glowing faintly with the pulse of energy. He could feel the weight of her presence in every step, like gravity he could not resist. Yet with that pull came doubt, a gnawing, persistent question of duty versus desire, of reason versus instinct. For years, he had been trained to make decisions based on logic, on strategy, on careful weighing of risks. But here, on this alien world, all of that seemed to falter. His mind wanted to analyze, to calculate, to protect his mission. But his heart, his very instincts, whispered something different, something unexplainable. Lady paused before a tall window that overlooked the city of. The skyline shimmered, towers of light and crystal stretching into the night. Ships moved silently between them, their paths precise and elegant. "Humans," she said softly, her voice echoing faintly in the chamber, "are strange. You carry so much in your hearts, yet you fear what you cannot control, and still some of you rise above it." His hands clenched at his sides. "I want to understand," he said honestly, though the words felt small compared to the storm inside him. "But I have responsibilities I cannot." "Responsibilities," she repeated, almost teasing, almost gentle. And yet, responsibility is not always the measure of the heart. Some choices require surrender, Captain, not to weakness, but to trust, to connection. Her words were like a knife and a balm at once. Training told him to remain cautious, to remember the humans depending on him, to never let himself be consumed by emotions that could cloud judgment. Yet every fiber of his being wanted to step closer, to understand her fully, to feel the weight and warmth of her presence. Later in the council chamber, the true depth of the conflict became clear. Advisors and nobles had gathered, their forms elegant and alien, their faces unreadable, felt their scrutiny like 1,000 invisible hands pressing against him. Whispers of doubt and suspicion filled the room, murmurs that he could not ignore. "They are unprepared," one elder said, voice like wind over glass. "A human cannot grasp the depth of, their presence could destabilize centuries of tradition." Another countered, "Perhaps, but the noblewoman has chosen him. That choice carries weight. Do we deny it or do we learn from it?" Stomach tightened. He realized that the pull of Lady was not just personal, it had implications far beyond him. One wrong move, one wrong decision, could shatter the fragile trust forming between two civilizations. The same force that drew him to her also threatened everything he had trained to protect. That night he walked alone through the palace gardens. The luminescent plants shimmered under the alien moons, and the soft hum of energy seemed to speak to him. His mind replayed the moment in the earlier garden, the whisper, the invitation, the promise that one touch could change everything. He imagined the world reshaping itself under her guidance, and the thought both thrilled and terrified him. "Do you fear the unknown?" Her voice came from behind, gentle but precise. Lady's eyes reflected the moonlight, golden and unwavering. "Or do you fear yourself?" Turned, meeting her gaze, he felt the honesty of the question pierce him. Fear was there, yes, but beneath it a stirring curiosity, a longing to see what lay beyond. He understood then that the conflict was not just about duty or logic, it was about courage. Courage to embrace the unfamiliar, courage to risk, courage to trust. For the first time, he realized that was testing him in ways no human mission could. It was not his body or rank or skill that mattered here. It was his heart, his willingness to step into the unknown, and his ability to reconcile the pull of desire with the weight of responsibility. And as he looked into her golden eyes, feeling the quiet power in her presence, understood. The conflict was not external, it was within him. The night in his palace felt alive, almost breathing. Wandered the crystal corridors, his mind still tangled in the conflict of duty and desire. Each reflection of light on the walls seemed to whisper possibilities, some frightening, some thrilling. He had never felt so aware of his own humanity, and yet so connected to something far beyond himself. Lady appeared silently beside him, as if the shadows themselves had guided her there. She moved with a grace that made him forget the world outside the palace, a presence so commanding that it was impossible not to notice every small gesture. She reached out, her hand hovering near his, and felt a warmth radiating from her that had nothing to do with the temperature of the air. "You do not need to speak," she said softly. "Words are only shadows of truth. Touch reveals the essence of what is real." His breath caught. He wanted to resist, to hold back, to cling to the safety of logic. Yet he could not deny the pull, the gravity that seemed to pull him forward. Step by step, he closed the distance between them. Every instinct screamed caution, but every fiber of his being longed to understand her, to connect, to bridge the space between human and... When his hand finally brushed against hers, the world shifted. Light surged in waves around them, reflections dancing across the crystal walls. The soft hum of seemed to grow louder, harmonizing with the rapid beat of his heart. Memories of his mission, of Earth, of all the rules he had learned, faded from the forefront of his mind. What remained was clarity, the presence of Lady, the energy she radiated, and the profound understanding that they were not simply two beings from different worlds. They were two minds, two souls, beginning to merge in perception. Her eyes met his, golden and deep, and he saw centuries of history in their depths. The weight of her people's legacy pressed on him, but not as a burden. Instead, it felt like a gift, a responsibility that he could bear because he had chosen to reach for it. And in that choice, he found freedom, a liberation from fear, from hesitation, from doubt. "I feel everything," he whispered, almost afraid to speak aloud. "I understand in ways I cannot describe." Lady's lips curved in a faint, approving smile. "Yes," she said. "You see beyond what you thought possible. Connection is not about similarity. It is about trust, empathy, and the courage to embrace what is different." For a long moment, they stood together in silence, hands still lightly touching. Realized that he had never felt so grounded, yet so expanded, so human, yet so connected to something larger than himself. Was no longer a distant world of rules and rituals. It had become a living, breathing reality that he was now a part of. Suddenly, a soft vibration pulsed through the crystal floor beneath them, subtle but undeniable. The palace seemed to acknowledge the bond forming between them. Lights shimmered brighter, the hum deepened, and the energy of wrapped around him like a gentle current. He felt as if the planet itself approved, guiding him toward understanding, toward unity. Lady tilted her head, her gaze never leaving his. "This bond is more than a gesture," she said. "It is a bridge, one that connects not only you and me but our peoples, our worlds. Do not underestimate the power of trust. It can change everything." Nodded, his chest heavy with emotion. He had feared losing himself, feared forgetting what he valued. But in this moment, he understood that he had not lost anything. Instead, he had gained something profound: insight, connection, and the promise of a future that neither he nor humanity could have imagined. As the alien night stretched above them, sparkling with twin moons and luminous clouds, felt a rare clarity. He had crossed the line from curiosity to understanding, from hesitation to acceptance. And with Lady at his side, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them not alone, but connected to a world and a being greater than himself. The bond was formed, not by duty or command, but by choice, by courage, and by the quiet magic of understanding. And in that bond felt something he had never known before, the profound certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The next morning, the palace was alive with whispers. Had not anticipated the ripple his bond with Lady would create. News traveled faster here than he could imagine, through the hum of crystal walls, through servants and advisors who seemed to sense changes before they occurred. The council chamber, normally serene and orderly, was now tense, filled with eyes that scrutinized him like he carried some invisible weight on his shoulders. Advisors murmured among themselves, voices low but urgent. "A human cannot understand the depth of our rituals," one said. "What if this bond disrupts centuries of balance?" Another added, "The noblewoman has chosen him, yes, but can we allow such a choice to dictate the fate of?" Listened, heart heavy, yet he did not retreat. He understood their concern. He, a human, was an outsider, fragile, unpredictable, untested in the ways of their society. Yet the bond he had formed was not born of whim. It was deliberate, conscious, and profound. He had chosen trust, and it had chosen him back. Lady entered the chamber, her presence commanding silence. Even in a room filled with nobility, she radiated authority. "You speak of doubt," she said calmly, her golden eyes sweeping across the council. "But what you see as danger may be opportunity. The human has embraced understanding, not conquest. He carries no weapons, only insight and respect." Some elders stiffened, but others leaned forward, curiosity replacing suspicion. Realized that her words were more than defense. They were a test, a lesson in perspective. She was showing them that trust could be stronger than fear, connection stronger than caution. As the meeting continued, found himself explaining, carefully and sincerely, what he had learned from his bond with her. He spoke of empathy, of understanding, of seeing the world through eyes not his own. He described the experience as neither magic nor control, but as clarity, an awareness that bridged their two species, opening doors that had been closed for generations. For the first time, some of the council members paused and listened. Their murmurs faded into thoughtful silence, replaced by questions of genuine curiosity. Could humans, with all their flaws, learn to connect within ways they had not imagined? Could understanding come without fear? Outside the chamber, the palace gardens shimmered under the twin moons. Walked with Lady after the meeting, the tension between them softened by the quiet night. "You did well," she said, her hand brushing against his lightly. Some humans might have faltered, unable to reconcile what they felt with what they were expected to do. But you chose not to run. That is rare. Exhaled, the weight of the council's scrutiny lifting slightly. I was afraid, he admitted, but I realized that fear could not control me. Not here, not now. I had to trust you and myself. She smiled, the glow of her eyes reflecting the luminescent plants. That is the beginning of true understanding, she said. Connection is not passive. It requires courage, choice, and responsibility. You have shown all three. Yet could sense the consequences were far from over. Whispers of doubt, envy, and fear lingered in the palace halls. Some would never fully accept his presence. Some would watch, waiting for missteps, ready to point blame at the human who had dared to cross the invisible line between species and tradition. Still, despite the uncertainty, felt an inner clarity he had never known. He had chosen connection over fear. He had embraced the unknown and survived it. And with Lady by his side, he understood that the challenges ahead were not threats. They were opportunities to prove that humans could rise not by force, but by understanding, empathy, and courage. As they walked through the softly glowing garden, their hands brushing again, realized something profound. Consequences might test him, but he would meet them not alone. Had accepted him not as a conqueror, not as an outsider, but as a participant in something far greater than any mission, any rule, or any expectation. And for the first time, he felt the weight of responsibility not as a burden, but as a gift, a chance to show that humanity, even fragile and untested, could step into the light of a world far beyond their own and leave a mark that mattered. The Hall of Stars was unlike anything had ever imagined. Its greatest library and temple combined, its walls made of transparent crystal that seemed to float in midair. Within, constellations glowed softly, each representing a moment in the history of Lady's people. Light moved along the patterns, shifting like a living river, telling stories without a single word. Stepped forward awestruck, feeling the weight of time pressing gently on his shoulders. Lady guided him through the hall. Each star, each line of light, she explained, is more than history. It is memory, knowledge, and emotion preserved, has lived in harmony with this for centuries. It shapes us, teaches us, reminds us of who we are and what we must protect. His eyes moved from one glowing constellation to another. He realized that they did not just record facts, they preserved experience, empathy, and understanding. Every line of light was a lesson, a memory, a choice made long before he was born. He felt the immensity of it, the sheer depth of a civilization that could think so far beyond the human. You see, Lady continued, her voice soft but steady, the bond we share is not simple. It is more than trust or friendship. It is the sharing of perception. It allows understanding between two beings, two species that would otherwise never meet truly. That is why I asked you to touch me, to accept the moment fully. Swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the enormity of what they had shared. He understood now that her request was not about desire alone. It was about enlightenment, about bridging worlds through connection and empathy. The experience had opened his mind, giving him insight into the way of thinking, into the rhythm of their civilization, into the depth of trust and understanding that shaped every choice they made. He looked at Lady, golden eyes reflecting constellations like liquid sunlight. I never imagined anything could feel like this, he admitted. Not just connection, but understanding. I can feel their history, their choices, their lives, and it is overwhelming but beautiful. Her lips curved into a faint, approving smile. Yes, she said. You have accepted more than a bond. You have accepted responsibility. With understanding comes power, the power to shape, to influence, to carry knowledge forward. But it is not for selfish use. It is for protection, for guidance, for harmony. Felt his chest tighten with emotion. Humanity, in its short, had always sought progress, often through conflict or technology, rarely through empathy or trust. Here in this glowing hall, he saw the true potential of a civilization guided by understanding. And he realized something profound. Humans, too, could rise. Not by conquering, not by dominance, but by reaching beyond themselves, by learning, by connecting. Lady extended her hand again, lightly brushing his. You are now part of this, Captain, not as an observer, not as an outsider, but as someone who can carry lessons back to your world. You will face challenges, disbelief, and fear. But your choices, Your courage will make a difference. Took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words settle into his mind. For the first time, he understood that the mission he had thought was about negotiation, and diplomacy was actually about something far greater. It was about proving that humans could rise above limitations, above instinct and fear, and embrace a path of understanding and wisdom. As they walked through the hall, the constellations glowing softly around them, felt a sense of calm and purpose he had never known. He was no longer just a visitor on this alien world. He was a participant, a student, and perhaps even a teacher. Had chosen to trust him, and in that trust, he had found not only connection with Lady but insight into the potential of his own people. The golden light of her eyes met his again. "Remember this feeling," she whispered. "It is the beginning of something greater. The bond is not only between us, it is a bridge for your world. You will carry it forward, Captain, and humanity may rise because of it." Nodded, a quiet determination settling in his chest. The revelation was complete, and with it came clarity. The bond had transformed him. The alien world had opened his mind and his heart, and he knew deep down that nothing would ever be the same again. The morning of his departure arrived quietly, with its twin suns casting a soft glow over the crystal towers. The palace seemed alive, as if it sensed the weight of the moment, aware that one life was about to leave but never truly go. Stood near the landing pad, the shuttle waiting silently, its engines humming faintly. His heart was heavy, filled with both anticipation and sorrow. Lady appeared beside him, her golden eyes reflecting the light of the rising suns. She looked calm, serene, yet could sense the quiet strength behind her gaze. "You will carry more than memories," she said softly. "You will carry understanding. Has trusted you, Captain. Never forget what that means." He nodded, struggling to find words that could convey what he felt. I don't know if I can ever repay this," he admitted. "You've shown me a world beyond my imagination, a perspective I never thought I could understand." She smiled faintly, her hand brushing against his in a gesture both tender and powerful. "Repayment is not required. Knowledge and empathy are their own reward. But remember, what you take with you has weight. It will influence, it will guide, and it will challenge the choices you make. That is the responsibility you carry." Felt the truth of her words settle into his chest. The bond they had formed was not fleeting. It was permanent, etched into his mind, his spirit, and his understanding of life. He realized that he would never see the universe the same way again. Humans, with their fleeting and limited experience, had often acted without empathy. But now he carried a bridge to a civilization that had mastered both knowledge and understanding. He carried hope and the potential to rise. The council members watched from the crystal platform, their expressions a mixture of awe, curiosity, and cautious approval. Some still harbored doubt, but many had seen the changes in, the quiet courage and insight that had grown since his arrival. He had proven that a human, though fragile and untested, could rise to meet challenges that others might have deemed impossible. Lady took a step closer. "You have done more than I expected," she said. "You have not only embraced the unknown, but you have shown humanity's potential. Do not doubt what you can carry back to your world. Do not doubt what you can change." Sighs met hers, golden light still shimmering in his memory. He felt a warmth that would remain with him forever. "I will not forget," he promised. "I will honor this, all of it, the people, the lessons, you." The shuttle's engines began to hum louder, and the ground trembled faintly beneath them. He turned for one last look at the planet glowing softly under its twin suns, a world alive with knowledge, history, and the quiet power of trust. And then he looked at Lady, whose gaze was unwavering, filled with the quiet certainty that they had created something enduring. As he stepped onto the shuttle, he felt the presence